Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down a really common medical condition you've almost definitely heard of, the hernia. We're going to jump right into what it is, where it happens, and most importantly, why it can sometimes turn into a serious emergency.
Okay, so let's get right into it. That definition sounds a little technical, right? But the idea is actually pretty simple. The best way to think about it is to picture your abdominal wall like the wall of a tire. Now imagine the inner tube inside that tire starts pushing out through a weak spot or a little hole. That bulge, well, that's the hernia. It's basically something on the inside pushing its way out through a weakness in the wall that's supposed to be holding it in.
So here's the thing. Not all hernias are created equal. And to really get a handle on them, we need to know how they get sorted into different categories. It really just boils down to two simple questions. How did it happen, and where on the body is it?
And this right here is the first big fork in the road. A hernia can be something you're born with, a little defect in the wall that's been there from day one. Or it can be acquired, which just means it develops later in life. This can happen from stuff like heavy lifting, a really persistent cough, or honestly just the tissues getting weaker over time.
Okay, so we've got the how they can form. So the next logical question is, where do they usually show up? And as you can probably guess, they love to appear at spots in our body's wall that are just naturally a little weaker.
While a hernia can pop up in a few different places on the front of your abdomen, there is one area that is hands down the most common, the inguinal region. That's just the medical way of saying the groin. And what's really interesting is that it's the #1 type of hernia for both men and women.
So these groin hernias are really the biggest category of all. Think of it as an umbrella term that covers those super common inguinal hernias we just talked about, but also the less common femoral hernias, which just happen a little bit lower down in that same general area. Next up, we have what are called ventral hernias. Basically, these are any hernias that show up on the front of your torso. This bucket includes the ones right around the belly button, the umbilical type, or even higher up on the abdomen. A really common one you see here is the incisional hernia, which, just like it sounds, can form right at the scar from a previous surgery.
And then you get to the much rarer types. A hernia can actually push through the pelvic floor, or even out the flank, which is through the muscles in your lower back. It's a pretty good reminder that a hernia can technically form in any spot where the body's containing wall gets weak.
So, when we see a hernia, what are we actually looking at? It's not just a simple bulge. It actually has three very distinct anatomical parts that make it up. Yep, every single hernia has these three parts. First, there's the covering. That's just the layers of the abdominal wall that got pushed out of the way. Second is the sac, which is this little pocket that forms from the peritoneum. That's the super thin lining of your whole abdominal cavity. And finally, you have the contents, and that's the actual organ or tissue that has popped through and is now sitting inside that sac.
And that sac itself has a very specific structure. You could almost think of it like a little balloon. It's got a wide body, a mouth where the contents get in, and, most importantly, a narrow neck. Now I want you to remember that narrow neck part, because it is absolutely critical. It's where things can go from being a problem to being a disaster.
And this brings us to what is, without a doubt, the most important takeaway from this entire explainer. You see, not all hernias are created equal. Many of them are manageable, but some can become legitimate, life-threatening emergencies. And the difference all comes down to what's happening at that narrow little neck of the sac.
This chart just lays out the escalating danger perfectly. So, a reducible hernia is low risk. You can literally just gently push it back in. Then you have an incarcerated one. That means it's stuck out and you can't push it back. But notice, the blood supply is still normal. The real 5-alarm fire danger zone is strangulation. That's when it's stuck and that narrow neck is squeezing so tight that it cuts off the blood supply. This is a true medical emergency.
And this is exactly why. When that narrow neck of the hernia sac squeezes so tightly that it chokes off the blood vessels going to the tissue inside, that tissue can actually start to die. This can quickly lead to infection, gangrene. It's a potentially fatal situation that requires immediate surgery, no questions asked.